Good morning, everyone. It's Wednesday already. In Spanish, we call it the belly button, the middle of the week.
Is that a fact?
I don't know if it's a fact, but it says ombligo of the week. Welcome, everyone, to Coffee and Pan Dulce. We have full house today, as everybody can see. Girls power in here today. Woohoo! Let's welcome our host, of course, Cano, the owner here of this podcast, Mr. Christian Cano. Come on and bring your buddy with you.
I brought Bless Your Hearts today. And because I've got this special shirt that we'll talk about here in just a moment.
I got a special button myself.
That's right, that's right. Welcome everyone to Coffee and Pan Dulce, and I will sit and we'll see if technology is working today or if she's being one of your daughters.
Yes.
Or your daughter.
Alexa.
Here we go. Alexa, stop.
She's listening today.
Did she stop?
She did. Excellent.
You know, I think it's in honor of Prime Day.
Oh, it is.
They're being much more cooperative
Amazon Prime
than they
Week.
normally would.
Actually, it was last night.
Yeah, I think, but I think some of the workers were on strike.
That's right.
Yeah.
I heard that.
Yeah.
So, welcome everyone.
I didn't order anything in one day.
I forgot to order. I ordered a bunch of stuff through PayPal this week. Some fishing stuff. And,
PayPal.
Or not PayPal, eBay. I paid with PayPal. Okay, we'll start all over. Welcome to Coffee and Pan Dulce. I'm Christian Cano, one of your co-hosts and co-owners of the show. Let's be clear. I want to welcome everyone for joining us. Today is July 17th. It's going to be one of the hottest days of the year, 96 degrees here. When you put a heat index, I think we're going to be at like 103, 104.
Wow.
Woo! And so those of you whose ACs are struggling, bear with it. It'll get
Open your windows.
Open your windows. We've got a very, very busy show, so we're going to get directly into it. But before we start our show, let's go ahead and salute to Coffee and Pan Dulce. Salute. Ching, ching. Salute. Ching. And today's Pan Dulce is American, Harris Teeter, and it is
our family grown.
We were up there making this last night. I wasn't able to get to Manolo's Bakery yesterday, so unfortunately, I'm sorry, Manolo. We've got blueberry, cinnamon raspberry, and banana nut muffins. So help yourself as we start to share.
Did you say banana
ladies
nut
and gentlemen,
muffins?
yes, they're right in the middle.
I'm happy to get you one.
Yes.
I do need to point out that this banana nut is not the same as the libertarian banana walnut bread, which was covered in the New York Times back in February.
What is the libertarian
banana libertarian, whatever.
I'm kind of afraid to ask.
Remember
I wonder if that's the one that tastes like Starbucks and banana nut?
If you go back to February, the Raleigh Board of Election hearings,
Okay.
I got a little bit of coverage in the New York Times
because
for standing in the lobby passing out my banana walnut
you were the
bread
hit.
to the reporters. They didn't mention me by name. They weren't interested in my politics, but I did get a call from the food section.
But even more important, you were like the Betty Crocker of the absentee ballot
I
controversy.
am the Betty Crocker of the absentee ballot controversy.
Yeah. Well,
thank you so much for that new moniker. I will wear it proudly.
All right, let's go ahead and introduce everyone while we share this. We'll start from our right because you're always right.
That's right.
Hi, I'm Barbara Bacon, and I have an announcement today. I have officially become the treasurer for Tara's campaign.
Oh!
Right.
Count that money. Count that. Thank you. That's a very, very
Not only counting the money, get that money in here for that campaign.
That's right. That's a very important
Get out
position
your
for
pockets
those
and
who.
start banging them together.
Yeah, those who run for office knows how important that position is. So thank you for doing that. That's well, congratulations.
Thank you. I know.
Treasurer.
I'm so honored. She's so
That's
awesome.
like the hardest
whole
position to get.
background.
Excellent, wonderful, and
If I would have known, I just let go of my treasury to one of our candidates. I couldn't do it because I have so much on my plate.
I'll bet you do.
And I didn't have enough help. So I was like, I don't want to get myself in trouble. So, no. But that's an awesome position, though. Very committed.
tell us who you are.
Ruth Perez here, community advocate for the city of Charlotte. I put on different hats every single day. But overall, I'm a mother, grandma, and a wife. That's it.
Excellent. I'm Christian Cano.
My name's Jeff Scott. man about town, and candidate in the 9th District for Congress, which will be in less than 8 weeks.
That's right.
September 10th.
And actually, absentee balloting starts like in 15 days.
Yeah.
That's
I think.
true, yes.
Maybe less than that.
August 21st. That's what we're told.
That's early voting.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But absentee balloting
That's
starts
right.
45
before.
days. So
Yeah.
if you're an
So
absentee
remember,
ballot-
if you are so inclined to vote outside of the party boxes,
Yes.
vote for Jeff Scott, Libertarian.
Okay, well, thank you for that plug, Jeff. And once again, we always invite everyone who's running for office and their supporters. So we try to be as fair so we don't violate any FEC regulations. Besides, FEC doesn't actually apply to social media.
Thank you.
Just thought I'll let y'all know that. And our special guest here from, tell us who you are.
So I'm Shannon Klug. I'm here representing Be Smart, and I want to say thank you, first of all, for inviting me.
Oh,
today.
thank you for coming.
And so I'm going to be talking a little bit about kids, guns, and safety today.
Excellent.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Tier Long. I'm candidate for County Commission at Large. I'm also an advocate for Medicare for All, and I support Be Smart.
Oh, excellent. Now, while we're doing that, let's very quickly talk about our buttons.
Well, I just got my new button, and I guess we're all wearing these
Thank you.
today.
Yes, we are.
I'm
So did
not
I.
color coordinated.
Okay, Be Smart. I'm wearing my Moms Men Action shirt because it's part of the Be Smart program. Be Smart is part of the Moms Men Action, which is an offshoot also of Every Town. Every time. That's more the political group. This is more of the nonpartisan educational group. Is that right?
Right.
So we're going to do a lot of educating today because as people who followed us and have followed our Facebook page, there's a lot of comments out there about this show, and I think it's important that we educate people because many of us aren't familiar with what a lot of groups do. So when we had a Jenny and Melba with National Organization of Women, had a lot of postings saying, "Don't take my."
Guns away.
Not just guns, but just things in general.
Yeah.
There's a lot of misconceptions on what groups actually do
Sure.
because we don't take the time to listen to each other.
Absolutely.
Especially me. So, if you watch last week's show, you'll know exactly why I have to say something like that. So, my button is Medicare for All. Of course, this is becoming even more and more important as we move towards, and I've got some new talking points we're going to talk about tonight. In Medicare for All, one of the big challenges we have in America is people only approach it from the cost perspective or the coverage perspective. If you only approach it from the cost perspective, you're going to get cheap health care, like we used to have before, junk insurance. If you approach it just from the coverage perspective, you're going to have coverage that people can't afford. And that's the reason Medicare for All joins both of them, and that's we have a meeting tonight, so we're going to talk about those kind of things as well. But obviously, I support of Moms Men Action because of their educational efforts, and I've shared this story before that one of the reasons that this was so enlightening when I first heard about this was because when my dad was in 10th grade, he came home to his brother, which was a senior in high school, who had shot himself.
Oh.
Apparently he was going through some problems, as most teenage people are, but this is, what, 50s, I guess so?
Social
And-
media wasn't.
Yeah, no social media. His dad had a gun, found the gun, and that was his only way to solve his issues. So my family has never been, at least on my dad's side, they're not gun owners. I'm not saying they don't have guns, but and we have families that are collectors as well. So anyway, this is very, very important. So please someone eat, and let's go ahead and start talking about what this is, the Be Smart Gun Sense program, and we will give you the floor to talk. And if we can, once again, this segment, we're going to spend a little bit more time on this segment. We started a little late. So Shannon, tell us about Be Smart, and you don't have, if you want to go to Moms Men Action, you can, or just about Be Smart, whatever you want to do. Because I'm sure we're going to get a bunch of questions here when you start talking.
So just to tell you, just kind of give you an idea what Be Smart is. So Be Smart is a nonprofit, it's nonpartisan, and it's a program for adults that are concerned, like I said, about guns, children, and safety. So what we know is that 1,500 kids every year in this country are dying in gun violence, are killed by a gun. So that's 4 children a day. So 4 children in our country today will die by a gun. So when they break down the numbers, 53% of that, so about 800 kids are going to be killed by homicide. Another 600 die in firearm suicide. And then approximately 100 are shot and killed in like an unintentional shooting where they find a gun and it goes off and they either kill themselves or someone else. So we just find that unacceptable
Mhm.
and really feel like we can bring those numbers down and really encourage adults to deny children access to guns. And so we've developed this Be Smart program. So like Christian said, Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America is a grassroots organization that's fighting, it's really actually in support of gun violence prevention.
Mhm.
So we're an offshoot of that. We are the public education campaign, really, to really teach adults how to deny children access to guns.
Let me ask one question. I think we had another gun violence incident. No, we had Cade Lee was here.
UNCC.
Right, and what group did he belong to?
March for Our Lives.
Right. So
Yeah.
he talked about gun violence, and my objection to him, like out of the gate, was when you add up the statistics of people who die from guns, a lot of them are suicides, right? The majority of them are suicides. So it seems to me that we've got a despair problem. You know, we've got people who can't deal with the things that are happening to them in life, whether it's mental health issue or financial issues or divorce, bankruptcy, stuff like that. When you talk about gun violence, do you talk about it in this? He was conflating those, right? So every time he said gun violence, he was including all of the people that are going to be taking their own lives. Now, are you suggesting that we should be taking away access in the home for?
Yeah, so what I'm saying, and we're going to jump to the R. So,
Sure. Okay.
so SMART is an acronym.
Right.
You can probably see it on the posters.
Do you have more of those?
I do. I've got cards for everybody.
Let's pass those out.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So this is a clever acronym, and it's in Spanish on one side and English on the other. So I'm going to jump right to the R to address your question, Jeff. So R is about recognizing the role of guns in suicide.
Okay.
So what we know is that there's an 85% success rate in suicide when you use a gun, which is far, far higher than any other form of self-harm. So we know also that somebody that's considering suicide spends about 10 minutes thinking about it. And so what we're saying, and as I said, this is really a program for adults in the protection of children, is that, when we're looking at teen suicide, is that if they have access to the gun, they've got an 85% success rate. If they don't have access to that weapon because it's locked or secured and it's not kept with the ammunition, then we can get them through that period. I spoke with a physician in Raleigh who, I like the way she really explained it to me. She said, mental health is like all other health. So that people that have like suicidal ideations, it's something that the mental health community or the hospitals and the doctors, they can help us with, right? You can get through that. It's like having high blood pressure. You can be treated for that. And so, what we're saying is that we feel like we can save the lives of children if we can make sure that they don't have access to a gun when they're going through those tough times, because we found that there's 17% of high schoolers surveyed said that they had thought about suicide within the last year. And if they have access to a gun, they're more likely to act on that. So we're looking at just trying to deny them access.
Do you think that 17% is a big departure from the past, or do you think that that's kind of a steady number over time?
I don't feel like I can answer that because I'm not in the medical health profession, but I feel like as humans, we all are going to struggle at some point in our life.
That's right.
And, to branch out from just looking at students, if you think too about, maybe an elderly parent that's got dementia, or, if you identify somebody in your family that's going through a rough period, that might be a good time to think about keeping a firearm locked.
So is it safe to say, go ahead, Ruth.
My question is, when you asked her, and something that I've been noticing since we posted the announcement yesterday.
Sure. Which were a
Your main
lot of
goal,
responses.
as I understand SMART is part of the Moms Demand on Action. Your main goal is not to stop people from owning guns, correct?
Right.
Your main goal, the way I've learned since I first met y'all about 2-3 years ago, it's to do awareness and prevention of suicidal, of misusing the guns.
Yes, I
correct?
like the way you said that, misusing. So, yeah, we absolutely feel that we want kids to grow up healthy and safe. We also totally agree that as adults, you know, we all have the choice on how we're going to protect our family and our community, and whether that includes having a gun in the home, and we respect that as a choice. And so what we're trying to do is just educate adults onto, you know, how to keep their weapons secure. So if I could take a minute to just jump into the acronym.
Let's do the acronym.
Okay, so the S is for secure weapons in guns and vehicles. So that means keeping them locked and unloaded and separate from the ammunition. So hiding a gun is not considered secure storage because they found that children, you know, will find it. They're curious.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like Christmas presents.
And a porn magazine.
Now,
Cash.
something in
You tried to
parentheses.
hide cash in your.
Something in parentheses when it says secure, and I agree on locking them up and stuff, but something that I've noticed is that some gun owners usually buy those stickers, placing them on their car saying, I'm a gun owner.
Yeah, I'm stupid.
That was interesting you said that because you guys had met with Mecklenburg County Sheriff,
So
and
Sheriff-
what did he say?
Sheriff McFadden told us that in this county, stolen guns is a huge problem.
Yes.
And that when people drive and come to, like, he used the Panthers game as an example, and they've got a sticker on their car that says something about owning a gun or protected by Smith & Wesson, that makes
Insured
them,
by Smith.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Insured by Smith &
that
Wesson.
tells the criminals there's a gun in that vehicle.
Correct.
And they go for that vehicle.
Yeah.
Well, that makes logical sense.
Yeah.
That would be, and we're not going to mention any other groups'
No.
names, but that would be like having a sticker saying,
I've got a
"I'm a
really
lacrosse player." Maybe you have some lacrosse gear in your.
I've got a really expensive speaker system in my car. It sounds great.
Yeah, like when you get that Bose and put it on
That's
your,
right.
on your
Yeah,
mower sticker and
exactly.
stuff like that. So
The
yeah, Bose.
Yeti
Yeah.
cups in the car.
So let me follow up with his suggestion,
Sure.
was to use a gun lock. And he said use two, like a cable gun lock, one through the actual gun,
Sure.
so that it could not be fired. And another one, he said to lock it up and say that most of those people are responsible in keeping them in a gun box. You know, loop it between the gun box and something in your car that, you know, like this seat mechanism, so that it just can't be taken out quickly. Because they don't have a lot of time when they're stealing something out of a car. And they're not gonna take the time to clip a lot of cables.
Is what they're
Right.
hoping, yeah.
So that, and that would be a way to secure the gun so it couldn't be
Well,
stolen.
I suggest for them not to put any bumper stickers either, because that's letting them know, you know,
It's
coming
like
up
a
and stuff
big
like
red
that.
beacon.
Yeah.
And so it kind of moves on to the modeling responsible behavior,
Yep.
so keeping it locked. And, you know, and we have actually literature that we share with parents on talking to your children about guns and how to do it in an age appropriate way for the different ages. So for your young elementary school kids, you know, you teach them if they see a gun, they need to tell an adult not to touch it. A lot of, you know, pretend play guns are starting to look very real.
Yeah.
But then when they get to be teenagers, you know, change that conversation up a little bit with language that's appropriate for them. The ask is important too. So this, I think, is really where the rubber hits the road for this program. We're asking adults to talk about gun safety in a way that's comfortable and normal, so that we can really normalize that conversation. So if you can recall back in the 80s when we had Moms Against Drunk Driving,
Right.
and they introduced into our lexicon and our vocabulary things like designated driver. We didn't talk about designated drivers before that, but now it's acceptable to, you know, Barb, you're my designated driver tonight, right? And when we go out, you're gonna get free Cokes all night or free coffees all night, whatever. So we want to, and that conversation is normal now, where it didn't used to be. And it's also acceptable bystander behavior to take someone's keys or order them an Uber, you know, if somebody's had too much to drink. So I feel like we've had a culture shift in our country. We want to do the same thing with guns. So we talk about it. Are you keeping your gun safe? You know, my child's coming to your house, or even talking to your relatives about it, like you're going to grandma's house, you're going to the uncle's house, you know, just letting adults have those conversations about, I prefer if you had your gun locked up while my kids are at your house.
That's something very important, especially in our Latino community. We adults don't really rely that information among our friendships.
We talked about
So normally we don't allow no one. If I'm gonna own a gun, I'm gonna keep it to myself and stay quiet.
this. That is
So
that
that's
is one of
something
the
very important that we have to kind
one
of.
of the challenges we have, and I continue to repeat this. Our show was about educating people and educating and empowering our Latinx community, English-speaking Latinx
Correct.
community, from 12 to 45, and there are certain cultural things, and that's one of the things that people are just they don't tell people those kind of things. So this
They don't
is
even
very, very
tell. They don't
important.
even share to their
with
kids.
their kids,
And
so
they might
find
be
the
hiding
guy.
it under the mattress, and then
Or
until the
behind the
kid finds
tortillas, or behind
the kitchen, and stuff like that. I mean,
Yeah.
I remember we had canisters in the kitchen countertop.
Sure.
My grandma would hide things in there.
Yeah,
We had no
yeah.
clue.
Yeah.
So it's very naive of
Yes.
parents
Yeah.
to assume that their kids are not going to find
Yes.
this hidden
So
stuff.
it's hard to
Yes.
bring that conversation among adults
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you know,
And
saying
especially
things.
within our Latinx
Right.
community, because
Well,
the culture is just not
And
to
I'm
question
glad
your
to
parents.
learn
Or,
that.
yeah.
So that can help us
Yes.
work
Sure.
with your community. But do you think your community is open to
I'm
change?
pretty sure they are, because that's one of the main reasons that we keep on doing this. That's what pushes us
Exactly.
to promote this type of shows. Our community needs to be educated, re-educated.
Yes.
It's not that it's not educated, but it was educated wrongly.
Yes.
So now we have to kind of update it. It's like changing the modem. It's just like
Mhm.
updating the computer for their own sake, for their own kids. There's a lot of
So-
things that.
Are there any parents who would object to the basic common sense of having conversations with their children about things that might harm them? Like whether it's alcohol, you're drinking wine at dinner at a certain point, your 10-year-old or 11-year-old or 12-year-old is going to say, what is that? Why are you drinking it? What does it taste like? Can I try it? So you come to a little crossroads.
Sure.
Same way with obviously sex. Teenagers are going to be curious. They're going to be
Adults
into
are
your
curious
stuff.
about sex. Just saying.
Drugs,
Touche.
yeah.
So who the way you phrased your program is it sounds very commonsensical. So the question is, well, what is there to object to? And I guess when I first
I'm ready for this to come out. here.
when I first saw this, I thought, well, there's a, you can ask other parents, if your kid's going over to play after school, do you have guns in the house? And would I ever ask another parent if they had guns in the house? I don't know if I would do that or not. If I knew that someone had a reputation for being a gun toter, had the Smith & Wesson stuff, and is known for.
But Jeff, this is a question that was asked in one of the Moms of Actions. But we do that already. We ask, do you have a pool?
That's
do you
right.
have dogs? Because
That's
you have
right.
dog allergies. Do you
Yep.
have
have
any
older
peanuts?
kids.
Peanuts,
My
that's
daughter,
right.
yeah.
So we
Yeah.
already do that.
Right.
So why would that be different?
Yeah.
Oh, is that your question?
Well, that's my
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
Who is raising objections to it?
There's a lot of them that watched us.
No, I understand. Look, people
Sure.
feel on this
Passionate.
issue. People
Yeah.
feel very passionate. They want to be.
Yeah.
They want to have their stuff.
Protecting
They want to have their
everything.
guns. They feel that protection is important. They feel privacy is important. They don't want to be intruded upon. And as long as they're not doing anything wrong, they're fine.
Sure.
And like I know that everybody in my neighborhood has guns,
Sure.
and in many cases they've had gun collections.
Sure.
They've had stuff that's
Yeah,
been
I have
inherited.
family members
Yeah.
that collect guns.
And so we are in
let them
a
shoot 'em.
gun town.
Yeah.
We're also in a dog town, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we're also
Well, you know what? I have something to add on to that.
Yeah.
If y'all remember at the beginning of the year, I think it was the beginning of the year, off of Providence Country Club.
Yep. There
The
was
young,
a shit,
the young girl that
boyfriend.
the
who broke
friend
up.
that slept over and ended up being the victim and dying with her dad.
Yeah.
The girls.
Yeah.
I guess the question that you're asking, we are in lack of communication or information to our kids, and that's the way I see it. We are in lack, even though we hear about gun sense, we're not speaking enough with our family members, with our kids about gun sense.
Okay. So the question is this really a problem in Charlotte? So for example, we were at Ed Driggs's meeting last Friday, and he brought out all the statistics on crime. So I'm not telling anybody anything new here. The crime statistics, murder statistics are up for the year,
Yes.
very high. And you know, Driggs's take and the CMPD is young black males are not able to resolve their conflicts without resorting to some violent means. And so the question is, of this population of people that would be subject to it, it strikes me that most of them are able to resolve their conflicts without violent means. And so are you trying to dissuade them from accidents mostly? Because a lot of these things are done on purpose, right?
So let me tell you some of the good work we're doing.
Okay.
So as you said, we met with Sheriff McFadden last week, and I actually met with the sheriff's office has put together a community engagement group. So I met with them yesterday.
Yeah.
And so we are going to partner with the sheriff's community engagement group to get out to those communities and to talk to the leadership and the adults in those communities about denying access of guns to kids. So you recall like the shooting that was at Butler High School this year, which was tragic because that was, you know, just a mile or two down the road from me. And I was literally in shock when that happened because my first notification was a friend from Raleigh who texted me that said, I heard there was a shooting in Matthews, is your daughter okay? Because I have a high school daughter. And I literally melted right there and freaked out. And then when I realized it wasn't her high school, I had survivor's guilt because I was like, and then I thought, oh my gosh, all these parents at Butler are freaking out right now. But as I understand it, that gun was taken from a car. So if that child that could not go through the conflict management that they needed to had not been able to get a hold of that gun because it was locked in the car, there would have been some other way that they would have fought or whatever, you know. But I mean, I can't say what was going to happen, but the access to the gun made all the difference in that situation. And so I'm really excited to be partnering with the Sheriff's Community Engagement team because we're really trying to get out in the community, and that's why I'm here today too.
Sure.
I would love to get with your audience members, and if they want more information, to get us into the community, because we offer presentations to community groups, to like PTA groups, to churches, to HOA, you name it. If you had a book club, you know, that you thought would benefit.
Can
just
you,
wanna get out and
Shannon,
spread the
because we're
word.
going to be running over on this segment, but can you with the A, can you go ahead and do the last two?
Sure, yeah,
Okay.
we got off topic.
Yeah.
So R we talked about was recognizing the role of guns in suicide, and then T is just tell, and I kind of just talked about that too. We're
Sure.
trying to tell as many people in the community as possible to really just bring down the incidence of, like you said, the unintentional shootings, when kids get access to guns and do something that is, you know, impulsive. And we just feel like we're not going to solve the problem,
Sure.
but if we can bring the numbers down. And you know, moms are great. You said a mom and a grandma about spreading the word.
And that's why I'm always, if you watch our previous shows,
She
I'm
always
always into the guns.
And she hasn't returned my mom's an action button, by the way.
Yeah. I have a question on that particular engagement in the community. Do y'all have any mothers that speak Spanish?
Yes.
That will be willing to come
Yes,
and talk
we
to
do.
us?
And we can do the presentation in Spanish, and all of our material comes in Spanish and English.
I do a show, a weekly show also,
Yes,
but it's completely in Spanish every Tuesday. We have a television online.
Oh, wonderful.
That I would love to invite you and open the doors, especially for the Spanish community, because that's something that we have to target, we have to talk about and re-educate our families out there.
One of the things I've taken away from this, and I did this before, but I want to highlight this because I'm not going to go over the comments that were made when we publicized this show, which were a lot. And many of them are from demographically Democrats. It wasn't what we would think, the Stony Rushing followers or whatever.
They're Democrats.
These were Democrats. And it was questions or comments like, you're just trying to take my gun away. You know, things that we've heard before. I need my gun to protect my family.
Guns are not the ones that kill, people are.
People kill people, guns don't kill people, people kill people. And those are understanding questions. So one of the takeaways I've taken from this program has nothing to do with taking away people's guns.
No.
This program is about education. It's about making if you are a responsible gun owner, which many people are responsible gun owners. Almost all I would say, I don't know this. I would assume the majority, I know the people that I know, it's learning how to keep those guns safely so that way we can minimize criminals getting a hold of those guns.
Correct. Yes.
So to the question about what do you need about criminals, what do you need about the high crime rate, well, that's another issue. We can't solve every single issue. The social economic issues that go into effect of, poverty, those kind of things.
The gun is just a gateway due to those.
So how do you keep a gun safer than you would, something else? So is that fair to comment to say? Okay.
Well, let me just ask one last question, because I put this toward Cade when he was here, and that was, if somehow we were magically able to restrict the number of weapons that people had access to, would that actually reduce the culture of violence that we have? We have a very militarist country. We have a very warlike, rah-rah approach to world affairs, and we don't treat each other very well, as we'll talk about in the next segment.
Exactly.
So, could you offer your comments on that?
So, I'm not saying that we're going to solve the violence issue. I think that is what it is. But if we can take guns out of the equation for many of those, I think we're gonna bring down the rate of guns, deaths, homicides, suicides.
And this is what I like about programs like this. The same way I like Medicare for All, the same way I like the medical cannabis group, the same way I like about those things. These are options that we're offering to the public. If you don't agree with this option, give us another option. But if you don't give us another option, don't criticize the options that are given us.
Be quiet.
No option is perfect. If you don't think this is a great option, start a group and tell us how you're going to impact. Tara, finally.
So kind of to answer the question, other countries are more successful at their gun control. They don't have as many guns and they don't have as many victims.
Sure.
So there is a correlation there.
Do they have less violence? Is there less violence in the UK, for
Gun
example?
violence, see, gun violence is fatal.
Yeah.
Right? And
It's
so,
all around the
when
world.
you were a kid, would you take it out to the playground with your fists and that's how you solved it?
I throw a rock.
Okay, there you go.
I didn't have toys.
Not fatal.
My toys were rocks.
Yeah.
I walked 7 miles uphill to
That's no story, right?
That's something very interesting, because I also read a comment yesterday where it said any other weapon can kill. So a lot of these people are just focusing on the action of killing instead of educating and understanding the meaning of keeping a safe. Because you can buy a machete, you can buy a knife, keep it safe as well.
Yeah.
Because that will prevent from accessing to our kids. That's our main goal.
So we're going to wrap this up because we're going to go to another section. But does anyone else have anything to add, or do you have anything you want to add to this?
I think we've covered it, and
Okay.
I'm open.
Just be smart.
Just be smart. So this is the program's called Be Smart. I'm looking at the cameras up there. The program's called Be Smart. It's a part of Moms About Action. I encourage you to attend a Moms About Action meeting. They meet here in Charlotte once a month, and the second
Tuesday in the month at the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill.
And there's a new group starting that's going to represent Union County. That's also, so if you don't want to drive all the way down to Dilworth Grill, you can go out to the ladies in Union County, or the people in Union County, because there's not just moms, there's dads too.
Yeah.
But usually it's the moms. You can go out there. They've got some great people.
That's also on the second Tuesday?
No, this
It's
is
gonna be on a Sunday. I'll get you the information. You can
Great.
post that.
yeah, and one of the members that's helping start that, Claudia, her daughters were in
They were at Sandy Hook.
Sandy Hook. And so there's a lot of people who have some personal experiences. And once again, I will say I wouldn't support this if I didn't think that it was more about education. I don't, just me.
Yeah.
I don't know any person who's ever run for office that I know of, or is running for office, that wants to take people's guns away. We just want to be safer.
Yeah.
And so and we're going to talk very briefly, if we have time, about the Second Amendment. We're going to read Second Amendment. But so those who are afraid that just because you want to make things safer means you want to take the guns away, I don't want to take anybody's guns away.
Or make it safer. I want to buy more guns so I can keep myself safer. No.
And so, this is something that has been developed. This is something that people are doing. If there are other gun safety issues, or gun sense, that's what we use the word. There was a question, why do we use the term gun sense? Someone asked that.
Because there are sensible laws, we
Okay.
believe, out there that, like you said, don't take guns away,
Sure.
but just
like background checks.
background checks.
Like maybe some
Age
other age
Age
limits,
limits,
like maybe a
exactly.
waiting period if someone is very angry to not grab the gun for domestic violence reasons. Like
Check the
trying to,
background,
like-
medical history.
if
and
someone
stuff like
has that, there's some possible legislation about if someone is.
So I think you're talking about the extreme risk protection
Yes,
order.
yeah, that's
So
something.
this legislation was proposed, 15 states have passed it.
Mhm.
And it basically, depends on how it's written per state, but
Yeah.
usually it's if a medical professional or a family member feels that somebody is at risk
Mhm.
due to the guns and gun violence, that guns can be just temporarily removed from the home.
Mhm.
So it's, you have to go before a judge,
Mhm.
all the legal protections are there. And a lot of times they're thinking for like a domestic abuse situation
Mhm.
or for suicides, it'll bring down the rates.
Yeah.
When somebody's identified as maybe having suicidal ideations or there's a domestic problem, they can get the help they need from the medical community in that period while the guns are removed from the home and then return them when they're.
Because once again, 85% of people who try suicides with guns are successful.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Correct.
85% rate. So if we can at least try to impact that, maybe we can give them some mental health. So that's right. So this has been very educational, and I'm sure we want to talk about this.
Extend this
Yeah,
more.
we
yes.
need to extend this. I want to thank everyone for the questions and the comments you've made. Are there any questions that we need to read?
No,
or
no,
just
right
to
now.
move forward? Okay. So
Thanks for the audience. We do have
a
audience.
lot of people are going to be watching us later. We usually get about 95% of our audiences wait until after our show so they don't see us watching.
Mhm.
And we want to go ahead and jump immediately into, we're not going to talk very much about this because I think it's been talked about forever and ever. President Trump made some comments this last weekend about going back to where you came from, which I'd love to go back to Fort Worth, Texas, and not have
Hey,
to.
San Antonio,
I guess that's really
deal
what he
with
meant.
this.
I'm sure you want to go back to California.
They won't take me back.
And you want to go back to Charlotte.
No, she's in Mount Iron. So you need to come back.
You're going to cost us the most, and you.
I'm not going back to Illinois.
All right. Well, hey.
No way.
And you.
No,
Washington,
except the
D.C.
tax.
Washington,
Oh,
I love DC. So those are comments that were made, and then he doubled down again on Monday's press conference, saying he basically went further, saying if you are unhappy here, leave.
Yeah.
You know, I don't disagree with that,
Yeah.
but I think, and we say this all the time, one of the things that people who try to marginalize other people is they always use that. Well, go back to where you came from.
Yep.
If you don't like it here, move. If this. What people don't understand is just because you have concerns about democracy, and those same people had concerns about President Obama and other issues, doesn't mean you don't love our country. It's the reason that you say those things is because you do love our country.
You stand for it.
And that doesn't mean
You're entitled to your opinion.
and we are entitled. So does anybody even want to comment on that? I mean,
Well, let me make one short, brief
we
point
got the bell.
she's got the bell.
because I
This
appreciate
is Jeff's got the bell.
what I appreciate is the fact that people who have come here from
Yeah.
other countries and look and see the kind of system we've got
Sure.
speak up against it.
Sure.
Yeah.
There are many people who come here and feel happy to be here, and they're timid.
Sure.
They're somewhat intimidated by dissenting.
Yes.
So, as a person who wants to uphold, at least some of the ideas of the founding,
Sure,
and
yeah.
people who are persuaded by lion democratic politicians to vote for them as a majority party.
Who wants a good standing?
He wants some extra time.
I appreciate their their inability to be intimidated. So I like that very much.
Anybody want to add anything? Well, all I can say is that the president has every right to say what he wants to say. It's freedom of speech. He does hold a certain position that I think he has to, just like a
Refrain
CEO of a
himself.
company would be. And just as I would be if I got elected, as a candidate, I can say whatever I want to.
That's right.
But once you get elected, there are responsibilities, just like we all do when we apply for a job. When you take a position in a job, there are responsibilities
that's true. But the primaries have started. The Democrats are doing their own trash talking between themselves.
Once you get elected, there's a responsibility you hold.
But
and
people announced campaigns against him. Mark Sanford might be running against him.
So my point is that
when he trash talks, his ratings go up.
That is true.
And when we talk about him, his ratings go up.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is that these 4 people that it seem like he's targeting, there were 102 Congress people in Congress that objected and it voted against the camps, which is how this all started.
Right.
102 of them, many of them white, many of them black, Alma Adams.
Right.
He only wanted to pick on the 4 young women of color. He didn't say those Democrats this. He has this special anger and bitterness against women in general, but specifically women of color. And psychologists can look at it and whatever, but it seems to be those type of individuals, whether it's him or even in our city, whatever, women of color tend to scare people because they don't know how to handle them. They don't know how to put them in their place. And the new generation of women in general, but women of color, are not going to be put in their place anymore. Back in the day, we used to call them people with attitudes. You know, everyone's got an attitude.
Let me just say for the record, just to wrap this point up, that I support AOC in her position on abolishing DHS.
Excellent.
And I retweeted that.
Thank you.
Same way with Ilhan Omar. I support her in her grilling of Elliot Abrams during the Venezuela related foreign policy hearings when they were trying to approve him. So I strongly agree with them, especially when they are on target with something that I agree with.
And they were elected by people in their district.
That's right.
And they have every right to fight for AOC's 50% of her district is immigrants. She's going to fight for immigrant issues. And just as if you lived in another district that was different, you're going to fight for those demographics. So obviously they were sent there to do a specific job and to tell them that they need to go back or whatever. That's just kind of trying to put them in their place.
It is.
So to me, the solution is an impeachment. But we've talked about that before. All right. So we are going to start next week the 9th Congressional District. We're not talking about it today, but we're going to start with their pictures up here. There's 4 candidates. This is going to be one of the issues. We're going to mark, do they support? No, yes, and we're going to go across so people can make decisions on what they... Do you support Medicare for all? No. Do you support, whatever? We want people to make those decisions. Some of those issues are not important to you.
Correct.
Some of those, LGBTQ people is important to me. It's important to me that everyone be treated equally and fairly. I don't believe transgender people should be prohibited from serving in our military. They cost us no more or less money than an original. Speaking of that, I don't think people knew you you served in the military.
I did. I was a U.S. Air Force officer for 24 years.
I did not know that till I read. I was like,
Air Force.
woo! So,
I said it. Women's in power.
Yeah, and so, you're, and I don't mean to say it like this, but you're not some...
Not knowing what...
you're...
Right, so I was trained to fire weapons. I have carried weapons in war zones.
Yes.
I'm very familiar.
Yes.
My husband and I own a gun. So I believe safety is paramount. I was taught that in the military, and so that's why I'm on this crusade.
That's what I kind of skipped. Do we have minutes to
we do.
switch back again to the SMART program? That's something very important. A lot of our, I have it. A lot of our applicants that I've noticed, they usually, I guess they don't go through too much thorough checkups when they apply for it, when you have a history of being in the military. And most of those, when I checked some records back in a few times,
were you talking about background checks?
Yes, I've noted that some of this, for having that lack of information, the biggest, the guy that killed a whole bunch of people in Arizona?
Ex-military.
It was an ex-military. And one in Texas also was an ex-military.
It's very, you said it, Ruth, and I mean interrupt because we need to jump to the subject, but They did the last event you had. One of the members, Claudia, did this slideshow on knowing the laws in North Carolina.
Yep.
And it was very important for us to understand what is required, what the loophole is, what other states are doing. There are some very interesting
Yes.
things that a lot of people don't understand. I've known, because I was in Texas, that there's so many loopholes. If you go to a gun show, you don't have to have a background check.
Right. You can apply right there.
Private sales.
Yeah.
I would have people, because I managed a hotel that was next to the convention center, and every time there was a gun show, I would walk out to my parking, and people would come up to me and ask me if I want to buy a gun. And I said, no, you don't have to have a background check. I could have just bought it. It was a personal...
It's like going to Vegas and getting married without nothing.
Exactly. So this is very, very important.
Get married to a gun.
Do you don't mind if we move on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's
So,
move
so,
on.
so the comments made by President 45, people are having their opinion. We'll see what happens with that. I think it's kind of foolish, because there are people now who are talking about, let's do the impeachment process, and that's something that I support. But of course, I know we're different on that issue. So we're going to go ahead and talk about what the Second Amendment means to our Latinx neighbors. But before we do that, let's read our constitutional quote of the week. I apologize, we forgot to read it last week. I got so impassioned. My hair's on fire. So
press the button.
press the
on
button.
Cano.
They did. Someone got to my anyway.
I think last nerve.
It was got
Second
on my
Amendment,
last
right?
Second Amendment.
Who's
Everyone.
reading it?
I
Yay,
excellent,
Tara.
Tara.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
So, everyone who watches this show, we try to read a constitutional quote of the week, because we believe all of the amendments, or as anyone who watches Judge Judy, anything within these four corners is a contract that we follow. I personally don't believe that the Second Amendment is any less or more important than the First or the Third or the Fourth. They're all amendments. I think they all play an important role in us trying to gauge, what our founding fathers. I mean, we never know what our founding fathers want, but as a libertarian.
Just to go, because we were born in a violent revolution.
Yeah.
So there's just no way around it. The country, I don't want to quote Martin Luther King here, but we have a long violent history, and we could continue down that path. We could have great breakout of civil disorder, where people don't trust the police, and so they're fearing for their lives, and they're going to need protection. They're going to want to own guns, and they're going to want to own guns not just from foreign forces, but also from domestic forces, domestic police forces, domestic intelligence agencies, neighbors who have a grudge. When that kind of law and order breaks down, people need to feel safe. So that's the basic argument for having your own protection. Now, it's pretty clear that when you look at the heavy equipment that the armies have, and agencies, there's a lot of administrative agencies, whether that's U.S. Treasury Department, the IRS, or even the FDA. So there's a whole raft of these administrative alphabet soup agencies that have their agents carrying weapons. So Washington, D.C. is armed to the teeth. Your local police is armed to the teeth. They're armed to the teeth with military-grade equipment. There are a lot of innocent people getting shot. The DHS and ICE are, we call them a rogue agency in the past. I don't consider them a rogue agency. I consider them a police state function that was built in order to violate the Constitution, in order to round up immigrants. So, just 2 weeks ago, not 2 weeks ago, maybe 2 months ago, Chris was saying, I'm freaked out about what ICE is doing and how it's rousing people.
I was thinking about going to buy a gun.
Right, because
fire weapon.
They could just be standing aside when you're getting mugged.
But just remember, you don't have to open the door.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's
so
true.
anyway,
that's
just
what the sheriff said. You do not have to open the door.
Just to wrap that point up, though, is that we live in a very violent society. I don't want it to happen. At my age, You know, I would be in the first wave of violence. I would probably be a victim, you know,
Sure.
because I'm not going to be out there trying to, you know, shoot people who are invading.
Sure. Well, I mean, I think, I can't speak for everyone else, but I do know that there are people that want stronger gun laws, and there are people that want to get rid of assault weapons, and there are those kind of people, those kind of things, and there are some of those things. I think the Supreme Court has ruled that assault weapons are not protected under the Second Amendment. I don't know that exactly, because I don't want someone saying you don't know what you're talking about. But I know there are certain, the Second Amendment, I think, does protect people from owning arms, and I don't think, this program does not say that that's not what you want. I'm one who has said, I believe that there are some other people who believe that how we can help control the amount of guns that people, is not by impacting their Second Amendment, it's by requiring them to provide gun liability insurance. Just as we, as homeowners, are in renters as well, you have to have insurance to have certain deadly dogs like pit bulls, bull mastiffs. Your homeowners, you have to cover that, because if something happens, someone has to pay for that. That I believe that we should require people to insure their guns, and if you keep them safely, just as if you drive a car safely, your insurance is going to be very, very minimal. But if you're an 18-year-old kid who goes and buys 10 handguns, you're going to have to be able to pay for, because why should a taxpayer pay for something that occurs, which is usually what we,
you know, and I would be fine with that if that were also applied to the police. If the police had greater liability for their mistaken actions,
so
because we got there was just a case that was settled recently where a cop shot a kid accidentally because he was shooting a dog, trying to shoot a dog, and so he was let off the hook.
So I think we need to start thinking about other ways and other outside the avenue. But this is what I think is very, very important. For many of the people that posted yesterday, I understand their frustration. I understand things, because change and fear is scary. No matter who you are, it is scary.
But don't you think the atmosphere in Charlotte right now is scary?
It is, with the crime rate, and which I'm sure something that people are talking to you about, Tara. Mecklenburg County, as running for Mecklenburg County Commissioner, which, by the way, I'm so glad I've got this new wonderful button. It is a beautiful button. So thank you. I'm excited to get this button. Yeah, you know, those are big concerns. One of the arguments I had, and is that, you know, with the crime rate the way it's going, and we are becoming a big city, so I'm not saying that is an excuse for it, but I am saying is that one of the challenges that I have is that our current leadership, they like to have press conferences about a possible soccer team, about the RNC coming, about this, but they still have not had a press conference about the crime rate.
Well, no, they may not have had a press conference about it, but certainly the city council is looking at it. You know, Driggs, they're all over this issue. I mean, they're looking at the details.
But
they're communicating it to their constituents.
Jeff, words and actions matter. You have a press conference about the RNC. You have a press conference about soccer. You have a mayor who writes the only op-ed she's ever written about why we need the RNC. Those are actions that you do that matter. But to
we
not
just
have
got
anything,
approved on our compact for the immigration.
Compact, but there was no press conference about it. So if you
I don't know if we want to quibble about their press conferences.
It's a great show.
I mean, we had a week ago. You know, we were at the Heist Brewery, and all the candidates were coming out.
And
as it was, you know, it's a big cattle call. All the candidates were there. Actually, I got to speak for like 30 seconds too. But
except for one.
That was on their mind. That was on their mind. The violence in the city. We need to do something about it. Now, you know, if we were really a big city, if we were like, you know, DC, or if we were like Chicago, or, you know, we would be talking about the gun violence that occurs in the African American community and among drug combatants. And because a lot of these killings aren't random, as Driggs explained, right? The people aren't sort of randomly killing other people. They're in conflict. And so the question then becomes, you know, you're going to be working with the sheriff's office, going to be talking about these issues. That's a noble goal.
But how do we separate, and I think this is the challenge that we have in this city. The challenge we have in this city is there are dog and whistle words and phrases that have been used against people who are marginalized for a long time in Charlotte. That's just, it's the bless your heart racism in this state and this city that people use. So when I see comments like, we're becoming the next Chicago, they're talking about, we don't want all the blacks here. That's really what they're saying. Anyone who doesn't understand that's what they're saying is hiding their head. When they say those kind of things, violence and crime does not just happen in black communities. It just so happens that our poor communities tend to be higher black and brown. So yes, I'm not saying that, that I disagree with you, but I am saying is that somehow we have to stop. I don't know how it's done, because that's why I would never run for city council, because it was a tough job.
That is a very tough
How
job.
do you attack this issue without making it about them? About them, because really, us in South Charlotte and us in other parts of this county, it impacts us too. So it needs to be about us.
That's true.
You
So
know?
so I see nothing wrong with going down with the focus of conflict resolution.
Yes.
How do people
Excellent.
how do people deal with one another? And so that's where I agree with you on Trump setting the tone. You know, I've said before, I don't think we should look to presidents and executives as sort of moral beacons, as you know, that they're executives, they got a job to do, and as long as they're doing that job, we're okay with it. We don't really care about a lot of other stuff.
Would this fall into county commission? Because health and services and mental health and all that, and that's county commission.
Right.
City is more public works,
Yeah.
public safety.
Mental health is definitely.
So this is something
County.
that the county commission really needs to take a look at, whereas the city council would take a more look at police forcing and
Absolutely.
potholes and whatever.
Correct.
So we should be hearing some stuff from you guys who are running
Absolutely.
on how do we solve this.
So 2 years ago, I remember when I was running,
Yep.
and people were asking about this question, and it was police interactions with people, and that was the whole controversy.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't know enough Spanish to
Yeah.
communicate with the person that they were stopping, and it ended up tragically. So the question becomes, you know, can you train your officers to deal with people? And train them in such a way so that they know more than just a few Spanish phrases. Can they speak conversationally Spanish in order to diffuse the situation? Do they know enough of the language? Can they sort of be culturally attuned to what's going on
And Jeff,
resolve it?
And Jeff, one of the things that we've been talking about on this show all the time is that Charlotte has this history of thinking that we have to reinvent the wheel. There are many cities that have gone through this kind of growth. Nashville is going through growth. They're doing some really good things about affordable housing. They're doing some good things about other things. Other cities have gone through growth like this. Let's just look to see what they did. We don't have to always reinvent the wheel. I know we like to be special here, but most people from this city and this region aren't from this city and region. And we bring a bunch of wonderful, diverse ideas to this city. So those are things. Instead of forming a committee that's going to take 2 years that we never even implement what they do, let's get the city manager to go visit these cities, and that's what we would do in the real world of business.
The thing is, the city manager is not from here, and he comes from
And something very important is
big cities. He does it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and something so important also is that he has to keep in mind that even though we have him as a city manager, there's a county manager.
Yes.
That he needs to be more
They
communicative.
work together.
And
Exactly.
working more together to implement that.
That's right. So I have a feeling in this next election cycle, the other thing that's going to come up is this the function of the citizen review board, right? I think Julie Iselt's on it. I've only seen one of their meetings, but it was very informative and very matter of fact. And Julie, I don't know if she's still on it or not. I assume
She just got appointed by Ray Cooper to be on another board. So.
Oh, really?
Well, I'm not sure what her status is, but as far as I could tell, it's a very clean, well-run operation, and they have to look at these things. They have to get as many facts as they can. They were, I think they were quibbling before about the fact that they don't have subpoena power, so they couldn't get all the information.
So maybe that's something they should work on.
Yeah.
Well, we're running out of time, and what I have to say is it would be really nice, just as a voter, as me, it would be nice. to have our city leadership, if you have to have a press conference every day to talk about how important this issue is, then do it. It doesn't, it doesn't, I don't understand why we're so afraid to say we're not a perfect city. We're not a perfect city. We have a lot of great things about this city, which is why over 100 people are here moving a day. Many of them from TCU, by the way, who graduates. I met 3 last week who graduated from Texas Christian University and moved here the next day.
Wow. I met a whole family of Southern Californians just a few weeks ago who just came here in the last 2 months.
As long as those Mexicans don't move here. Is that what it is? Girl, I had to say that joke. All right.
That ain't no joke.
Yeah, I know. So we're going to wrap it up here, and I want to thank everyone for joining us. Thank you, Shannon, for educating us. Please, how can they get in contact with you if they want to do this program or if they have any questions? If people have questions later, we'll keep doing. I'm sure people have comments and questions later on, like we get them like for the next week. How can they contact you or whatever?
I'm going to leave you with my contact information.
Excellent. And can we post it?
Yes.
Okay,
and then
okay.
also I would say go to besmartforkids.org.
Okay.
And just look at that website. There's a short little 2 or 3 minute video that'll actually kind of educate you as well. And please reach out to me if you would like more information for your community or civic group, because we are trying to reach out to the entire community to change the culture here around guns to make people more responsible and safe with them.
Yes.
And just want to add something. At one of your meetings, the CMPD or the sheriffs were there, and they were giving away free
Gun locks.
gun locks.
Yes, we give away free gun locks.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think people know that.
Yes.
So if you want to know what that work, maybe contact them or go to one of the meetings or the new ones that are going to happen in Union County. So if you're, once again, if you live in South Charlotte, you want to drive down, you could go to either of those. I think that's going to be very. Those are great things to have. We're gonna as we normally do, as when we do our. I've got to go behind the thing as the producer and / director, since we still don't have one. But we are going to post in 2 weeks a position for an intern for the new skill set. So if anyone knows a college student, or heck, I don't care, we don't discriminate in age, someone who just knows how to push a button. If you want to know the workings of doing this, and you want to know the workings of what we deal with,
Want to get
demographics,
further expertise
further
on doing
expertise in this,
The glamour of the
yes,
behind the scenes.
glamour. So and you want to see how it is to live as lifestyles of the rich and famous. With my one piece, with our one piece of original art from the artist here, Rob Paris, once again. I want to thank you for joining us once again. We post this on YouTube, and this is recorded, so we post it on a bunch of social media outlets. And we'll see who our guest is next week. We want to have Caleb. We want to have Caleb back on because we had technical difficulties. We want to have some other people back on as we get closer to the election. We'll start posting where people stand on those issues. Once again, everyone is invited to come here. You're welcome to tell us about issues that
At
are
least to
important
come and read her.
At least to come to read our Second Amendment.
Yes.
We don't bite. Right?
Most of the time.
Most of the time.
I still
We
have
got-
a wound from
we got-
you.
We had to be civil today because Mother Hen was here, and she does the kick under the table kind of thing.
Come on.
Cano! So we're gonna leave ourselves out. I think I'm gonna go fishing this weekend once again and try my new catfish thing. There's a
A new
device.
glove? The other glove?
I bought the gloves, but
Okay.
the catfish keeps slipping out. Like there's a grab device that you get the lip of the catfish so you can hold it up. Because every
Yeah.
time I grabbed it, it fell in the
It
water,
falls in?
and
Okay.
it's damaging their head when I anyway.
You
Well, it's a
murderer.
very challenging story.
You fish
But
murderer.
we've got a lot of things. There's a fundraiser this weekend from Action and C. They're raising money to send their people to Detroit, and then they're going to Detroit for a convention. So please look at that. Otherwise, I'm going to start this, and you can tell us as we go around where you're going to be. Alexa, play Pandora. Thank you for joining us. I didn't have to put Bless Your Heart on once today. Oh, he applied. I went to
Last
him.
Friday.
Oh, I don't know what that is. And once again, Medicare for all. Educate yourself.
So, Barbara, where are you going to be?
I will be in Illinois at a family function called the Annual Pig Roast.
Oh, my
Our
goodness.
last name is Bacon.
Okay, so
Hold on. We got to repeat this. I got to. Hold on a second.
Pig roast.
Pig Roast.
You're going to be at a family function.
Yeah,
It's an annual event called the Pig Roast
And our
because
last
they're
name is
That's
Pig.
funny.
Of course it is.
That is hilarious. Okay, I like that one. Ruth, where are you going to be?
I will be working more crafting for my soon-to-be-born first granddaughter. And
Oh.
I'm doing everything for her baby shower. And also I have us Mexicans, a quinceanera this weekend
Oh,
as well.
really? And your show, once again, is every Tuesday?
Yes, Espacio Latino every Tuesday through digital television online.
Yes.
Everyone's welcome to
Yes.
join in.
And you had a great guest last time. Who was that?
Yes,
Wendy-
I had Wendy Mateo.
Wendy
Actually,
Mateo?
they're gonna be doing the CLA in Spanish, fully in Spanish
Oh, wow.
for our Hispanic-speaking residents.
Excellent.
That's our Civic Leadership Academy
Excellent.
through the city of Charlotte. So it's at no cost and it's awesome.
Excellent.
Support local theater. Go see Young Frankenstein, the youth theater at Theater Charlotte. It's Mel Brooks' musical. You will have a good time. I'll be there having a beer in the lobby. Say hi.
Can't picture him.
Shannon, where are you going to be?
Let me tell you where I'm going to be on August 6th.
Okay.
So National Night Out, August 6th. I'll be in Matthews. We'll have folks in Mint Hill as well at the Be Smart table. So stop by and we'll talk to you. We'll give you a free gun lock. And can't wait to meet you guys.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
And
Can we do a
Urban
selfie there?
Stream Cleanup and Social. We start at Catawba Brewing Company. That's Thursday, July 25th from 5 to 9.
excellent. And but your places every day. I mean, you've got
I just
so
got one to support
Yeah.
because I've been working with the flood victims this past week a lot.
Yep.
And so I want to put a push for cleaning up the streams.
perfect. Okay.
All
I
right.
guess-
See y'all next Wednesday.